Western civilization is addicted to separatist ways of life that shroud its ability to comprehend reality, consequences, and the interconnectedness of humanity and the environment. The way that humans communicate, eat, and work have all been separated, processed, and commodified. But life is heteronomous. When one part of an ecosystem is misused, there is a harmful ripple effect throughout that ecosystem. It is the same for society. However, just as problems ripple through a system, so do solutions. Permaculture is a solution that was developed during the 1970s by two Australian scientists, Bill Mollison and David Holmgren. They were motivated by the ideas of permanent agriculture and permanent culture. Permaculture is a holistic system of design based on direct observation of nature, learning from traditional knowledge and the findings of modern science. Permaculture aims to restructure society by returning control of resources for living to ordinary people in their communities. The ethics, earth care, people care, and fair share form the foundation for permaculture design and are also found in most traditional societies. Ethic number 1, earth care. Earth care means caring for the living soil. The state of the soil is often the best measure for the health and well-being of society. The easiest method to tell if soil is healthy is to see how much life exists there. By reducing our consumption, we reduce our impact on the environment, which is the best way to care for all living things. Ethic number 2, people care. People care begins with ourselves and expands to include our families, neighbors, and wider communities. If we can recognize that a greater wisdom lies within a group of people, we can work with others to bring about the best outcomes for all involved. This escalates into permanent culture. How can we develop a permaculture if our people are expendable, uncared for, excluded? People care asks that our basic needs for food, shelter, education, employment, and healthy social relationships are met. Ethic number 3, fair share. Fair share is the taking of what we need and sharing what we don't, while recognizing that there are limits to how much we can give and how much we can take. This last ethic synthesizes the first two. It acknowledges that we only have one earth and we have to share it with all living things and future generations. There is no point in designing a sustainable family unit, community, or nation while others languish without clean water, clean air, food, shelter, meaningful employment, and social contact. Since the industrialized global north uses the resources of at least 3 earths, and much of the global south languishes in poverty, fair share is an acknowledgement of this terrible imbalance and a call to limit consumption, especially of natural resources in the north. The 12 permaculture design principles are thinking tools that, when used together, allow us to creatively redesign our environment and our behavior. They can be applied to any place and situation and can be implemented in our personal lives, the economy, and society.
Principle number 1. Observe and interact. By taking the time to engage with nature, we can design solutions that suit our particular situation.
For example, consider this healing herb that is usually dismissed as a weed. It is often found within meters of the back door and has leaves that, when used as a poultice, has the ability to radically speed up wound healing. When the leaves are eaten, they boost the immune system, and when the seed heads are eaten, they produce a digestive aid.
Principle number 2. Catch and store energy. By developing systems that collect resources when they are abundant, we can use them in times of need.
For example, during the height of summer, sunlight is shaded from this house's living room windows. In the cooler months, it streams through and heats the thermal mass of the floor, regulating the temperature. The solar panels on the roof convert sun's energy to electricity, while the vegetables in the garden transform it into food. The fruit trees also provide wood and materials for weaving, while water collected from the roof is stored in the tank and used to irrigate the garden using gravity.
Principle number 3, obtain a yield. Ensure that you are getting truly useful rewards as part of the work that you are doing, getting many yields from one element in your system.
However, the concept of yields is not merely about renewable energy or veggies. A yield can also be about social capital. For example, this man shows a diverse array of produce grown at Zaytuna Farm's urban garden. The farm hosts hundreds of students, woofers, and interns every year who help to manage the gardens that provide food during their stay.
Principle number 4, apply self-regulation and accept feedback. We need to discourage inappropriate activity to ensure that systems can continue to function well.
For example, electric light switches are so easily turned on and can easily be turned off. In some countries, electricity is relatively cheap. We can afford to light our houses up. The negative feedback that we must accept is climate change due to carbon emissions. The average daily electricity use for Australian households of 20 kilowatts per hour could easily be reduced to less than 5 kilowatts per hour.
Principle number 5. Use and value renewable resources and services. Make the best use of nature's abundance to reduce our consumptive behavior and dependence on non-renewable resources.
For example, these 3 children are playing with a seesaw made with driftwood that was collected nearby. Tactile, interesting, and tough, it's likely to last well beyond the used-by date of a manufactured seesaw, with the added benefit of a future transformation into something else.
Principle number 6, produce no waste. By valuing and making use of all the resources that are available to us, nothing goes to waste. Utilize the yields of each element to meet the needs of other elements in the system.
For example, the ducks that live among these fruit trees eat snails, slugs, and grass, while their manure is absorbed into the soil. The nutrient-rich water from the duck bath can be drained directly to soak into the nearby terrace or siphoned off to a specific tree to give it a boost. The understory plants attract beneficial insects, provide food for the ducks, and a living mulch to protect the soil. Outputs become valuable inputs.
Principle number 7. Design from patterns to details. By stepping back, we can observe patterns in nature and society. These can form the backbone of our designs, with the details filled in as we go.
For example, here, drones and the queen are tending the brood. Bees need some flexibility to determine what proportion of drone cells to worker cells their hive requires. They also prefer to expand their brood nest as an integrated whole, and to have space at the edge of the brood nest to put incoming nectar. Bee-friendly hive management aims to work with these patterns and allow the bees to sort out the details.
Principle number 8. Integrate rather than segregate. By putting the right things in the right place, relationships develop between them and they support each other.
The more integrated an orchard is with a wildflower meadow, or vegetables are with flowers frequented by beneficial insects, the less pests will prevail. The same is true for people. Cultural diversity yields a robust and fertile culture, whereas a rigid monoculture of politics and religion can bring sterility, even social and political repression. For example, the importance of collaborative processes is often ignored because of the urgency of direct action. Groups can work more successfully together when participants are engaged and feel connected, bringing better outcomes in the long term. Robin Clayfield initiates a group handshake at the end of her dynamic decision-making workshop that supports everyone in the group to meet, discuss, and make decisions in a more effective, inclusive, and empowering way.
Principle number 9. Use small and slow solutions. Small and slow systems are easier to maintain than big ones, making better use of local resources and producing more sustainable outcomes.
For example, after decades of land mismanagement, the last natural spring of the Chiquaqua region had silted over. A communal effort to restore them 20 years ago has culminated in the reinvigoration of the land, providing an example that's spreading all over Africa. Core to the project has been slowing water runoff using techniques like contour planting, terraces, swales, and bunds, all made by hand. These reduce erosion, recharge the springs, and rehydrate the soil, feeding orchards, crops, and people.
Principle number 10. Use and value diversity. Diversity reduces vulnerability to a variety of threats and takes advantage of the unique nature of the environment in which it resides. We want to create resilience by utilizing many elements.
Biodiversity creates healthy ecosystems. Diversity in terms of crops, energy sources, and employment make for greater sustainability. Valuing diversity amongst people makes for a more peaceful, equitable society. Conflict and wars are the biggest slayers of sustainable development. For example, Mr. Shi Tao Mo has his plot in one of 19 inner-city public housing community gardens. Participating gardeners come from diverse backgrounds with over 55 language groups represented, and a wide range of crops grown that reflect the tastes of the many cultures. The highly productive gardens provide tenants with access to land that they use to grow their own food, as well as a place to meet with others to share and learn new skills.
Principle number 11. Use edges and value the marginal. The interface between things is where the most interesting events take place. These are often the most valuable, diverse, and productive elements in the system.
In nature, EDGE is all about increasing diversity by the increase of interrelationships between the elements. In human society, EDGE is where we have cultural diversity and where free thinkers thrive. It is where new ideas are allowed to develop and ageless wisdom is given its rightful respect. EDGE is suppressed in non-democratic states and countries that demand theological allegiance to one religion. For example, this bus stop library was set up as part of the Clovelly Road Better Block initiative, where the local community is aiming to make the street greener, safer, more human, and livable. This bus stop invites travelers to engage with the space at the beginning and end of a journey.
Principle number 12. Creatively use and respond to change. We can have a positive impact on inevitable change by carefully observing and then intervening at the right time.
Adapting to the shifting patterns of temperature, rainfall, pest populations, and other external forces is an important skill for the permaculture gardener. The goal is to work with nature instead of trying to control it. For example, Nelson, British Columbia has built a strong, democratic, and community-owned alternative economy. Cooperative thinking permeates the community's approach to localization, with cooperatives for transport, food, radio, and banking, as well as cow shares and Canada's first grain-focused community-supported agriculture scheme. One local talked about the pleasure of conducting all of your daily transactions through community-owned enterprises. Permaculture invites us to imagine a future world, one without cheap oil that reduces its carbon load in the atmosphere. By doing this, we take the first steps towards creating it. We stand on the bedrock of permaculture ethics, earth care, people care, and fair share, and are empowered by a set of principles that can inform our planning and actions. Human beings can either be the destroyers or the self-elected stewards of our planet. We have the capacity to put our ethics into action.